Good morning, guys. So we're actually heading down this morning towards to cover the protests this morning. Got a couple of little stories we're going to follow up on. I've started previously, sort of did a very rigorously unscientific pop quiz in Newtown, which I've done a previous video on, sort of kind of saying, well, this whole overwhelming MSM idea that everyone's against protests wasn't really that true in Newtown. Now, I've done the same thing today. And again, so I haven't gone and interviewed thousands and thousands. I just took the first 10 people that I bumped into. I was cheeky. I thought I'd actually try and prove a point. I went and approached people that were not wearing masks, and I went and approached people that were wearing masks. This is the Clampton Quay. So this is the corporate part of Wellington. It's close to the status quo as you could possibly get. The response has actually been really surprising, because there's been about 70% of the people I spoke to. In fact, we could say 60% of the people I spoke to were definitely overwhelmingly in support of the protest. They had various ranges where they thought that it had made its point, but now it was time to move along. That was overall feeling, but not negative. 30% of the people we spoke to, which were all masked up, but said like, it was about a 50-50 split, so I just went first 10 people, and there were no comments. Didn't want to just carry on walking as soon as I heard the word protest. And 20 probably, so 60% definitely for it, 20 to 30% didn't care, and only one person came up saying, not even completely against the protests, just more along the lines of, that felt that kind of, you'd gone past the Tuesday point. So not obviously he wasn't a big fan like the other people, but he was sort of like going, well, yeah, okay, everyone's got a right to protest. Didn't believe what the protest was standing for, but did acknowledge the right to protest. So that was actually kind of encouraging, because I actually thought we were living in this sort of neoliberal fascist dystopia where everybody had been completely sucked in, especially in Wellington. That actually hasn't been my response. I mean, I've spoken to my niece Ruby, who's just sort of finished her university, and she's very much up with both the Maori activism scene and the rainbow community. She's just a really clever, switched-on young 19-year-old, and she's pro-vaccination, and she has a little bit of sympathy for the protesters, and she'll confirm that there's this element within the rainbow, it's a bit unfair to put on the rainbow community, but there's within this element of woke, probably woke's a bit more fairer, that just have this dogma. And it's quite interesting too, because when we were chatting last night and you unpacked it, these guys always claim the moral high ground and sort of tend to go on about derogatory terms for the protesters. So they're quite used to dehumanising, belittling, dismissive, all the things which they accuse other values of being, they exercise themselves. And there is a large element of what I would call middle class racism. I said when my niece critiques an aspect, she understands some of the social demographic aspects that are at play in the protests, which this woke community don't really seem to be really understanding, and more importantly, don't really seem to care about. So they maintain this sort of, we are the progressive liberal and we're all enlightened, but when it actually comes to looking out for people that are not of their tribe, who are vulnerable and suffering, there isn't a great deal of empathy going on there. But the positive side, as I said, is I've walked along, and I'm now at the Midlands Park, which is used to be the mobile headquarters, basically across the road there, tied up with the Todd family, one of the people that Chris Hipkins used to work for, and one of some buildings that were kind of like one of the sort of power bases of Wellington that no one ever paid attention to, but in actual fact the energy and oil industry had a lot to say. And these days it's the mobile logo is actually off, and it's got the NTT logo, which is I think telecommunications company. But so this is where we're actually sort of, from that point going down that way, we really start to head into that kind of uber corporate. So I'm going to run another little pop quiz. So this is all maybe more the retail social area, and it's quite, you know, there's quite a good diverse people walking through it. And again, you're heading towards things like the wharf and the railway station, so lots of flow on through traffic. So we'll head on towards more up towards the Parliament and the sort of the government end of this, and we'll turn around and see what kind of response that should we get there. Again, I'll be cheeky. I'll go for people wearing masks. People aren't wearing masks. And I'm not, because of sort of the situation, the traffic's moving quite through, I haven't been asked them, you know, who they vote for or what the voting patterns are. So we're just focusing on the stage about where the support basis lies.